I never thought I'd be the person who walks out of a wedding, especially not my best friend's wedding. But last weekend, I found myself standing in the parking lot of a gorgeous vineyard, my partner's hand in mine, while music and laughter echoed from the reception hall we had just left. The worst part? I wasn't even sure if I was angry, embarrassed, or just heartbroken, because this wasn't just some misunderstanding about table placements or forgotten plus ones. It felt personal. And the more I replay the night in my head, the more I wonder if I'm the bad guy for leaving when I did, or if I finally saw my best friend for who they really are. I've been to a lot of weddings. My cousins, co-workers, even that one neighbor's bohemian backyard thing where everyone got mosquito bites the size of grapes. But this one was supposed to be different. This was Danielle's wedding. My best friend since freshman year of high school. Danielle was the first person I met when I transferred schools at 14, awkward and quiet with a secondhand backpack that squeaked when I walked. She just plopped herself down at my lunch table, asked me if I liked chocolate that tastes like dirt, her words for dark chocolate. And just like that, we were inseparable. We survived failed relationships, college drama, job hunting, family fights, all of it. So when she called me last year to tell me she was engaged, I cried harder than she did. Naturally, I assumed I'd be her maid of honor. I didn't say it out loud, but you know when you just know? Except when she officially asked me to be in the bridal party. It was as a bridesmaid, not maid of honor. She said her sister had to take that spot. Fine, I told myself. It's family. The months leading up to the wedding were exhausting, but in that fun, wedding prep kind of way. Dresses, fittings, bachelorette weekend, dealing with Danielle's occasional meltdowns about flowers or the weather app showing rain. My partner, Jamie, was there for all of it in the background, being supportive. Danielle always liked Jamie. At least, I thought so. The morning of the wedding, everything was pure chaos. Hair and makeup people everywhere. A photographer barking at us to laugh like you just heard the funniest thing in your life. Champagne flutes clinking. Danielle looked beautiful. Seriously, like she stepped out of a bridal magazine. I told her as much and she hugged me, thanking me for putting up with her through all this. Jamie was supposed to arrive for the ceremony itself, dressed in the suit we'd picked out together. I had specifically checked with Danielle months ago that Jamie was invited to both the ceremony and reception. She said, of course, wouldn't have it any other way. Except when Jamie got there, it was weird. The ceremony seating was set up in this gorgeous open-air garden. Bridesmaids and groomsmen were being lined up for the procession, and Jamie waved to me from the guest area. But when I tried to sneak over before we started, one of the wedding planners, a friend of the groom's family, apparently, stopped me. She asked, is your guest in the right seat? I looked over and saw Jamie standing awkwardly at the far back, near the catering area. I said, they're my plus one. They're fine. The planner gave me this tight smile and muttered something about VIP family seating before walking off. I brushed it off, but something about Jamie's expression, that sort of polite, ill-pretend-I'm-not-bothered smile, stuck with me through the whole ceremony. After the vows and photos, everyone moved to the vineyard's reception hall. The place was stunning. High ceilings, fairy lights strung everywhere, the smell of wine and fresh bread in the air. I was starving, running on 3 hours of sleep and half a granola bar. I found Jamie near the coat rack, fiddling with the cufflinks I'd gotten them last Christmas. They said, hey, did you know I'm not sitting at your table? I blinked. What? No, you're with me, right? Jamie shook their head and pulled out the little place card they'd been given. Table 18. I looked over at the seating chart, and sure enough, all the bridesmaids were at table 2 with their partners, except me. My seat was at table 2, Jamie's was shoved way in the corner with a bunch of people I'd never heard of. I went straight to Danielle, catching her just as she was finishing a laugh with one of her new in-laws. I kept my voice low. Hey, is there a mistake with the seating chart? Jamie's not at my table. She glanced over at the chart, then back at me. Oh, yeah, that wasn't a mistake. I thought it'd be easier this way. You'll be busy with bridal party stuff, so I figured Jamie wouldn't mind being with some of my other friends. I just stared at her, but everyone else's partner is with them. She gave me this look, that tight, slightly defensive smile people do when they're trying to make you drop it. Yeah, but you know, I wanted to keep the vibes right. No offense, okay? And then she just turned back to her conversation like it was nothing. Jamie tried to brush it off when I told them. It's fine, I'll mingle, they said, but I could tell it wasn't fine. As the night went on, it got worse. Every time I went over to check on Jamie, I caught little things. People at their table ignoring them. One guy turning his chair so his back was to them. The waitress almost skipping over them entirely when serving drinks. And when the first dance started, I saw Danielle's maid of honor whisper something to Jamie that made their face go red. That was the moment my stomach turned, because I suddenly realized this wasn't an accident. And by the time dessert came around, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I'm not usually the dramatic type. I've never been the person who flips a table in a restaurant or storms out of a party. But something about watching Jamie sit there, smiling politely while being iced out at a table full of strangers, made me feel like my skin was on fire. The weirdest part was that none of the other partners were treated that way. I'd glance at table 2 and see Maddie curled up against her boyfriend, Mark feeding his wife bites of cake, even Lauren's date, who she'd only been seeing for 2 months, laughing with the groom's cousins. Meanwhile, Jamie was sipping water like it was the only thing keeping them from bolting. During the toasts, I slid over to their table and crouched down beside them. "Are you okay?" I whispered. Jamie glanced around before answering. "I'm fine, really. Just not sure what I did wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said, sharper than I meant to. I looked over at the guy who'd been sitting next to Jamie, tall, buzz-cut, maybe late 20s. He was mid-conversation with someone across the table, but when his eyes flicked to me, I caught it. That look, the one that's somewhere between dismissive and smug, like I was interrupting something important. "Want me to get you another drink?" I asked Jamie. They shook their head. Honestly, I was thinking about stepping outside for a bit. "It's loud in here." That was fine by me. I needed a moment to think anyway. But as I was standing up, one of the bridesmaids' partners leaned toward me and said, "Hey, maybe your friend could try not looking so bored. It's kind of a buzzkill at the table." I swear my brain stalled for a second. I didn't even know this guy's name. "Excuse me," I said. He just shrugged. "Just saying. Everyone's here to have fun, you know?" I didn't reply. I just grabbed Jamie's hand and led them out into the courtyard. The air outside was cool and quiet, the kind of crisp night air that makes you wish you'd brought a jacket. The string lights around the vineyard cast this soft glow on everything. And for a moment, I thought maybe I could just shake this off. Jamie leaned against the stone wall, exhaling like they'd been holding their breath all night. Is it just me, or do they not want me here? I hated that they even had to ask. "No, it's not just you," I said. "I don't know what's going on, but it's not okay." Jamie looked down at their shoes. "You don't have to make a scene. It's Danielle's wedding." And that's when it hit me, that guilt. The kind that worms into your stomach and makes you second-guess everything. Danielle had been my friend for over a decade. She'd been there for my breakups, my job changes, even the night I met Jamie. But right now, she was letting this happen. I told Jamie I'd be right back and walked inside, weaving through the crowd until I found Danielle near the dessert table, laughing with her sister. I waited until her sister wandered off before speaking. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Why is everyone treating Jamie like they don't belong here?" Danielle's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about seating them at the back, people ignoring them, someone literally telling me they're a buzzkill." She cut me off with a small laugh. "Okay, I think you're reading too much into it. This is my wedding. I don't have time to manage every single person's social experience." "That's not what I'm asking," I said. "I'm asking why you separated us in the first place." Danielle sighed like I was being difficult. "Look, I just thought it would be less awkward. You know how some people in my family can be. I didn't want there to be tension." "Tension," I repeated. "With Jamie? What tension?" Her eyes flicked to the side, and for a second, I saw it, that flash of guilt or hesitation. "Never mind. It's not important. Let's just enjoy the night, okay?" And then she walked away, just like that. I stood there for a good 30 seconds, trying to process. Something was going on here, something she wasn't saying. And suddenly, the idea of just letting it go felt impossible. When I got back outside, Jamie was scrolling through their phone, but they looked up immediately. "Everything okay?" "Not really," I said. "But we're going to find out what this is about." Because if Danielle wasn't going to give me a straight answer, I knew exactly who would. And I had just spotted them heading toward the bar. The person I spotted heading to the bar was Colin, the groom's cousin. He'd been hanging around the bridal party on and off all weekend, and he was one of those people who just couldn't keep his mouth shut once he had a drink or two. Normally, I found him a little annoying, But right now, that trait was exactly what I needed. I caught up to him just as he was ordering another whiskey. "Hey, Colin," I said, leaning against the counter like I was just taking a break. He turned, already grinning. "Well, if it isn't the prettiest bridesmaid of the bunch. You having fun?" "Trying to," I said, forcing a smile. "Listen, can I ask you something kind of weird?" He raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Shoot. You've been hanging around Danielle's family a lot this weekend. Have you noticed anything off about the way people are treating my partner?" For a split second, his expression shifted. It wasn't huge, just a tiny tightening around the eyes, like he'd been caught thinking about something he wasn't supposed to say. "What do you mean?" he asked. I said, lowering my voice. "The seating thing, people ignoring them. Someone called them a buzzkill. And Danielle keeps brushing it off." Colin took a slow sip of his drink, glancing toward the dance floor. "Okay, look, I probably shouldn't say anything, but some people just thought it was kind of weird. You know, that you brought them." I stared at him. "Weird how?" He winced, like he knew he'd stepped in it. "It's not me, all right? I don't care. But Danielle's mom, and a couple of her aunts, they were making comments at the rehearsal dinner. About how Jamie's not really what they pictured for you. And how Danielle was trying to keep the night about the couple." My stomach tightened. "What does that even mean?" Colin gave a little shrug. "I think they just meant Jamie's not the type of person her family's used to. And Danielle didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. That word made my blood run cold. Jamie had done nothing but show up in a nice suit, smile, and be polite. And apparently that was enough to make people uncomfortable. I thanked Colin, though it came out sharper than I intended, and walked away before I said something I'd regret. Outside, Jamie was still leaning against the stone wall, the glow from the string lights catching in their hair. They looked up at me, searching my face. "Well," they asked. I didn't even know how to start. "It's Danielle's family. They think you don't fit some kind of image they have for tonight." Jamie blinked slowly, like they were trying to decide if they'd heard me right. "So I'm being iced out because I don't match the wedding decor?" Basically, I muttered. And Danielle knew. She admitted she wanted to avoid tension. Jamie let out this short, humorless laugh. "Wow, good to know I'm a walking source of tension." I reached for their hand. "Hey, none of this is on you. They're the ones acting like." I stopped, biting my tongue. We stood there for a minute, neither of us talking. Inside, the DJ had moved on to a set of early 2000s throwbacks, and the bass was thumping through the walls. People were probably dancing, laughing, clinking glasses. And I was standing outside wondering how the hell I was supposed to go back in there like nothing happened. Jamie finally broke the silence. "You know, we could just leave. Go grab a burger somewhere. I don't need to be here." The thing was, I didn't need to be there either. Not if this was how Danielle thought it was okay to treat someone I love. But leaving meant making a statement, one I wasn't sure I could take back. I told Jamie to give me 5 minutes, that I needed to grab something from inside before we made any decisions. And as I walked back toward the hall, I caught sight of Danielle across the room. She was at the head table, laughing at something her new husband had said. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to just quietly slip out. Because the look I saw in her eyes when she noticed me walking toward her, it wasn't surprise. It was annoyance. I've had arguments with Danielle before, over small stuff, who forgot to return whose hoodie, whose turn it was to call after a rough week, that kind of thing. But we'd never had a real, knockdown fight. Not in all our years of friendship. That streak was about to end. I crossed the reception hall, weaving through clusters of guests until I reached the head table. Danielle was mid-laugh, fork in hand, the fairy lights above making her hair glow like something out of a bridal magazine. She looked happy. The sight almost made me hesitate. "Almost. Can we talk?" I said, my voice low but firm. She glanced at me, still smiling like she thought I was going to say something nice. Can it wait? We're in the middle of." "No," I said, sharper this time. "It can't." That got a few heads turning. A couple of her bridesmaids froze with champagne flutes halfway to their mouths. Danielle's new husband gave me a polite, confused smile before excusing himself to greet someone across the room. I leaned in slightly, not enough to shout, but enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "I just talked to Colin." Her smile wavered. "Okay, and he told me exactly why you stuck Jamie at the far end of the room. And why people have been ignoring them all night." Her face went still. I'd seen Danielle fake her way through bad dates, job interviews, even family dinners, but this was different. This was the kind of stillness that meant she knew she'd been caught. Look, she started. I didn't want to make a big deal. It already is a big deal, I cut in. You knew your family would treat Jamie differently, and instead of defending them, you just separated us? Like there's some kind of problem you needed to hide? The nearby tables had gone quiet. Even the music from the DJ booth felt softer, though that was probably just in my head. Danielle glanced around, clearly aware of the attention. I was trying to keep things smooth, she said, her tone tightening. You know how my mom is, and some of my aunts. They can be judgmental. I didn't want it turning into a scene. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Well, congratulations. You turned it into a scene yourself. Her eyes flashed. I'm sorry, but this is my wedding. For one night, I just wanted things to be about me and Mark, not other dynamics. I took a step back, my voice shaking now. Jamie is not a dynamic. They're a person, my person, and you let them sit alone while your friends and family treated them like they didn't belong. For a second, she actually looked like she might apologize. Her mouth opened, her shoulders dropped a little, but then one of her bridesmaids, Lauren, leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Whatever it was made Danielle's jaw tighten again. You're overreacting, she said finally. Jamie's fine. That was it. That was the moment the knot in my chest snapped. No, Jamie's done being fine. We're leaving. And before she could answer, I turned and walked away, the scrape of my shoes against the hardwood echoing in my ears. I could feel the stairs following me as I made my way to the courtyard. Jamie was still outside, scrolling through their phone, but they looked up immediately. So, I exhaled. We're going. They stood without a word, slipping their hand into mine as we headed for the parking lot. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But halfway across the gravel, I heard my name. It was Danielle, and she was jogging toward us in her wedding dress. The crunch of Danielle's heels on the gravel was jarring against the quiet night. She had to lift her dress with both hands just to keep from tripping, and for a second, the image almost made me laugh, if it wasn't for the fact my chest felt like it was caving in. Wait, she called. Can you please just stop for a second? I stopped, but only because Jamie squeezed my hand gently. A silent, let's hear her out. Danielle finally reached us, a little breathless, the wind catching her veil so it floated behind her like some dramatic movie scene. She looked from me to Jamie, then back to me. I don't want you to leave like this, she said. Then maybe you shouldn't have treated us like this, I replied. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. I let out a sharp laugh. Not fair? You knew exactly what you were doing, Danielle. You knew your family might act like this, and instead of standing up for Jamie, you just put them as far away as possible and hoped I wouldn't notice. Jamie shifted beside me, their free hand in their pocket, eyes fixed on the ground. They weren't going to jump in unless I invited them. That's just how they are. Danielle's voice lowered, like she was trying to keep her words contained. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to keep the peace. You don't know what my mom is like when she gets an idea in her head. She will latch on and not let go. If she'd started making comments about, she trailed off, gesturing vaguely at Jamie. About things, it would have been a disaster. Jamie looked up then, their voice steady. Things like me existing? Danielle flinched, and that flinch told me everything. She hadn't expected Jamie to speak. This is ridiculous, I said. If your mom or your aunts had a problem, that's their problem. You don't get to decide that my partner is too what? Too different? Too inconvenient? To sit next to me at your reception? It's not like that, she said quickly. Then what is it like? I shot back. She hesitated, glancing toward the glowing reception hall like she was afraid of being seen. They were talking before the wedding, saying they didn't understand you too, that they didn't want distractions from the ceremony. And I thought, you thought if you just quietly tucked Jamie in the corner, everyone would be happy? I interrupted. Yes, she blurted, then immediately looked like she regretted saying it out loud. I thought it would be better than having a fight during my wedding. I thought you'd understand it wasn't personal. Jamie shook their head. You can't treat someone like they're invisible and then say it's not personal. Danielle's eyes were shining now, either from tears or from the cold. You're my best friend, she said, her voice cracking slightly. I didn't want this to blow up. I thought for one night, you'd let it go. The weight of those words hit me in the gut. She really thought I'd just ignore it. That my loyalty to her meant I'd look the other way while my partner was humiliated. I took a slow breath, my decision solidifying. Danielle, I've let a lot of little things go over the years. This isn't one of them. Something in her expression shifted, the pleading faded, replaced with something sharper. So that's it. You're walking out of my wedding? Jamie's hand tightened in mine. I met Danielle's eyes. I guess I am. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was waiting for me to take it back. When I didn't, she took a step back, the gravel crunching under her heels. Fine. Go. But don't expect me to call tomorrow. I turned toward the car, my pulse pounding in my ears. Jamie unlocked the doors, and just as I was about to slide in, Danielle's voice rang out one last time. You're making a huge mistake, and you don't even know the whole story. I froze with one foot inside the car. Jamie was already half in the passenger seat, but they glanced back at me, brow furrowed. What does that mean? I called across the lot. Danielle was standing under one of the tall floodlights, her dress catching the glow, arms wrapped tight around herself like the night air had finally gotten to her. It means, she said, that you don't know what Jamie said about me. The words hit like a bucket of cold water. What? She took a few steps forward, her voice low but carrying in the stillness. Months ago, after your birthday dinner, we were outside talking, just me and Jamie. They told me they thought I was selfish, that I use people. I turned to Jamie immediately. You said that. Jamie shifted, looking uncomfortable. Not exactly. That night, you just told me about all the stress you were under because Danielle kept making you handle her wedding details. And when she came outside asking me why you seemed down, I said I thought sometimes she leaned on you a little too much. That's all. Danielle gave a sharp laugh, the kind that's more disbelief than humor. A little too much? You basically called me a user. I didn't forget it, and neither did Mark when I told him. I didn't want to start anything before the wedding, but I also wasn't about to play nice like nothing happened. I stared at her, my thoughts a mess. So, all of this, the seating, the cold shoulders, that's because Jamie made one comment months ago that you didn't like? It wasn't just the comment, Danielle snapped. It was the audacity. I've been your best friend for over a decade, and they barely know me. And you sided with them after only a couple of years together? Jamie's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now. It's not about sides. I wasn't trying to insult you. I was trying to protect them. You've put a lot on them this past year, and I could see it wearing them down. Danielle shook her head, eyes glassy. You don't get to protect someone from me like I'm some villain. I was planning the most important day of my life, and suddenly my best friend is pulling away, spending more time with you, not me. And yeah, maybe I resented that. The parking lot felt too quiet. The only sound was the faint thump of bass from inside the reception and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. I wanted to say something, to untangle the years of friendship and loyalty from the fresh sting of betrayal, but nothing came out. Because now it wasn't just about how Danielle had treated Jamie tonight. It was about months of unspoken tension, a slow drift we'd both been pretending wasn't happening. Jamie reached for my arm. We should go, they murmured. But Danielle took one last step forward, her voice trembling now. If you walk away, you're choosing them over me. And I'm telling you, once you make that choice, there's no going back. My hand hovered over the car door handle. Because the awful thing was, she might be right. It's a strange thing, realizing you're standing in the middle of a moment you're going to remember for the rest of your life. The gravel under my shoes, the faint smell of wine drifting from the reception hall, the way Jamie's hand was warm against my arm, while Danielle's voice shook just enough to betray she wasn't as in control as she wanted to seem. I could feel both of them looking at me, waiting. I'm not choosing sides, I said finally, my voice quieter than I expected. I'm choosing not to let someone I love be treated like they're an afterthought. Danielle's mouth tightened. That is a side. Jamie didn't say anything, but I could feel their grip loosen slightly, not pulling away, just easing. Like they wanted me to know I could still walk this back if I wanted to. But I didn't want to. I turned to Danielle. You could have talked to me about what Jamie said. You could have told me you were hurt. Instead, you turned my partner into a prop for your silent grudge. And you expect me to stay and pretend like everything's fine? Her jaw moved like she was chewing on her words, but nothing came out right away. When it did, it was low and clipped. You've changed. I almost laughed. Yeah, I guess I have. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the breeze rattling through the vineyard vines. Danielle stood there in her perfect white dress, veil fluttering, like some scene from a movie right before the credits roll, except there was no neat resolution here. Jamie reached past me and opened the driver's side door. "We should go," they murmured again. I nodded, sliding into the seat. Danielle didn't move. She just stood there, watching as we started the car. I glanced at her one last time through the windshield, expecting, I don't know, tears maybe? A last-minute apology? But her face was unreadable, a wall I couldn't see through anymore. The drive out of the vineyard was silent at first. My hands were tight on the wheel, headlights cutting through rows of grapevines until we hit the main road. I kept waiting for Jamie to say something, but they didn't. Finally, about 10 minutes in, they said, "You okay?" I didn't answer right away. "I don't know. Do you think she meant it? About there being no going back?" I stared straight ahead. "Yeah, I do." We drove another mile before my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. One new message from Danielle. It was only 5 words, but they made my stomach drop. "You should know what else." I kept my eyes on the road, but my pulse was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. The phone was still glowing in the cup holder between us, the words "you should know what else" burning in my peripheral vision. Jamie glanced down at it, then at me. "You're not going to check?" I swallowed. "I don't know if I want to." They frowned. "Why wouldn't you? She's obviously trying to stir something." That was exactly the problem. Danielle was trying to stir something. And the thing was, she knew me well enough to know exactly which threads to pull to make me unravel. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the leather warm under my palms from the residual heat of the day. We passed a strip of road where the vineyard fences gave way to open farmland, the moon hanging low and huge above us. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the occasional rumble of another car heading the opposite way. Finally, I flicked my blinker and pulled onto the gravel shoulder. The crunch beneath the tires seemed deafening in the stillness. Jamie looked at me like I'd just made a mistake. "I'm just going to read it," I said, picking up the phone. "I'll regret it if I don't." Jamie didn't reply. They just stared out the passenger window, their profile lit by the faint glow of the dashboard. I opened the message. "Ask Jamie what they said to Mark at the engagement party." My stomach dropped. I scrolled up to see if she'd sent anything else, but that was it. Just that one sentence. I sat there, the cold air from the vent brushing against my knuckles, wondering if this was just Danielle trying to twist the knife, or if there was actually something here I didn't know about. Finally, I said, "What happened between you and Mark at the engagement party?" Jamie's head turned slowly. "What?" "Danielle just texted me," I said. "She said I should ask you what you said to him that night." Jamie's brow furrowed. "I didn't say anything to him. We barely talked." "Why?" I studied their face, looking for that micro-expression, the tiny flicker of hesitation that people get when they're not telling the whole truth. Jamie's expression stayed steady, but something in the way they blinked made me uneasy. "Jamie," I said softly, "if there's something you're not telling me, I need to know." They sighed and leaned back in the seat, running a hand over their face. "Okay, fine. I might have said something, but it wasn't a big deal." My grip on the phone tightened. "What did you say?" Jamie shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "Mark was making a joke about how you and Danielle had been friends so long you were basically like sisters. And I made some comment about how sometimes even family can take advantage of you." The words sat heavy in the air between us. "Why would you say that?" I asked. Jamie met my eyes. "Because it's true. You were running around doing all this stuff for her wedding, bending over backwards, and I could see it was wearing you out. Mark was acting like it was this sweet, wholesome thing, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut." I pressed my fingers to my temples. "You realize how that would sound, damn right? How it would sound like you were accusing her of being what? A user? Selfish?" Jamie's voice stayed calm. "I wasn't accusing. I was observing." I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. "Jamie, you basically planted that seed months before the wedding. No wonder she's been acting like this." Jamie's expression hardened just a fraction. "So now this is my fault." "I'm not saying it's all your fault," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "But maybe this isn't just about her being petty tonight. Maybe she's been feeling like you've been judging her from the start." They turned their gaze back to the dark road ahead, jaw tightening. "Maybe I have been, because I've watched you put her ahead of yourself for years. And the second I pointed out, I'm the bad guy." I didn't respond. My throat felt tight, and for a moment I couldn't tell if it was from anger or guilt. The phone buzzed again in my lap. Another message from Danielle. "If you still think I'm overreacting, ask him about what he told my maid of honor." My skin prickled. Jamie, what about Lauren? Jamie's head whipped toward me. Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. She's just trying to make you doubt me. Did you say something to her or not? I pressed. Jamie hesitated. And that hesitation was all it took for my stomach to twist into knots. The hesitation sat there in the air like a bad smell, invisible, but impossible to ignore. Jamie didn't answer right away, and in that gap of silence, my mind started filling in the blanks all on its own. I pictured them leaning in close to Lauren during the bachelorette party, maybe a little tipsy, saying something they thought was harmless, but that hit Danielle like a dart to the chest. Or maybe it wasn't harmless at all. Maybe it was exactly what Danielle thought it was, judgment dressed up as concern. The cold air from the vent brushed over my face, grounding me just enough to keep my voice steady when I finally spoke. Jamie, what did you say to Lauren? They shifted in the seat, shoulders pressing back against the headrest, eyes flicking away to the darkness outside the passenger window. The movement was small, but it screamed discomfort. It was nothing, they said at first. I leaned back slightly, trying not to let my frustration boil over. I swear, if you tell me one more time it was nothing, when clearly Danielle thinks it was something. Jamie exhaled, long and slow. Okay, fine. We were at the bar. It was loud. Everyone was talking about how perfect Danielle was as a bride, how easy she was to work with. And I made a joke. I tilted my head. What kind of joke? Jamie looked at me then, but not quite into my eyes. More like they were aiming for somewhere near them, the way people do when they're afraid to see your reaction. I said she was easy to work with if you didn't mind doing all the work for her. I felt my stomach drop. Jamie, they held up a hand. It wasn't meant to be cruel. It was, I don't know. I'd had a couple drinks. I was trying to be funny. Funny, I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. To her maid of honor? You said that to one of her closest friends in the middle of her wedding planning? Jamie winced. Yeah, and apparently Lauren told Danielle later. I didn't think it would actually get back to her. I mean, we were all joking. That's not a joke. That's planting the idea that she doesn't actually do anything for her own wedding. I said, my grip on the steering wheel tightening even though we were still parked. Jamie's jaw clenched. So I can't even make an offhand comment without it becoming this huge thing? It's not about the comment. It's about the pattern, I said. You've said things to Mark, to Lauren, and apparently to Danielle herself about her being selfish or using me. Can you see how that might make her feel like you've been quietly turning people against her? For the first time tonight, Jamie didn't have an immediate comeback. They looked away, their profile shadowed except for the faint light from the dashboard. I could see their throat move as they swallowed. Finally, they said, I wasn't trying to turn people against her. I just don't like how much you bend for her. I've watched you cancel plans with me, stay up late working on her stuff, drive across town to pick up her orders because she didn't want to pay for delivery. And yeah, maybe I thought someone needed to point it out. My chest felt tight. Then why didn't you just point it out to me? Why go to other people? Jamie's voice softened. Because when I point it out to you, you defend her. Every time. And I thought, maybe if other people noticed too, you'd start to see it. That stung in a way I wasn't prepared for. Because deep down, I knew there was some truth there. I had defended Danielle, even when I knew she was being unfair. I'd chalked it up to loyalty, to not wanting to make small things bigger than they were. But tonight wasn't small. And now I was looking at my partner, realizing they'd been running a quiet campaign of snide comments behind my back, even if they thought it was for my own good. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even want to look at it, but the glow from the screen lit up the inside of the car. Another text from Danielle. Told you. Believe me now? Jamie saw it too. She's baiting you, they said quickly. She wants you to turn on me. Maybe, I said slowly. Or maybe she's just showing me that this isn't as one-sided as I thought. Jamie turned toward me fully now, their tone sharper. So you're saying she's right? That I'm the villain here? I stared at them, the weight of everything sitting heavy between us. I'm saying, I don't know who's right anymore. Jamie sat back, their expression hardening, the silence stretching until it felt like another wall between us. And in that silence, my phone buzzed again, this time with a photo attached. It was from Danielle, and whatever was in that picture made my heart lurch into my throat. The photo loaded in slow motion, like my phone wanted to give me a few extra seconds to decide who I was going to be when I saw it. When the preview finally sharpened, it wasn't a picture of the reception or a blurry shot of me walking out. or the seating chart. It was a screenshot, a chat thread. At the top, I could see Lauren's contact photo, a little beach selfie with the wind lifting her hair, and beneath it, a line of blue bubbles. The blue meant they weren't Lauren's words. They were Jamie's. I stared for a heartbeat too long, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something else if I refused to blink. I'm serious. You're a good friend. You should say something. She drains people. I don't want my partner getting pulled under because Danielle is stressed. It's not even about the wedding. It's a pattern with her. You've said it yourself. You don't have to be mean. Just give her a mirror. She needs one. My mouth went dry. I scrolled. Below those, there was a voice memo, 22 seconds long, and then one more line. If you can't, I will. I didn't hit play. My thumb hovered over the little triangle and trembled, and I could feel Jamie watching me now, not looking away like they had before, but almost bracing. That's fake, they said quietly, except the quiet made it worse. She's pulling things out of context. I zoomed in on the timestamp, 3 weeks before the wedding. The same weekend, I'd hosted a craft night to help Danielle finish table numbers and place cards because her calligrapher fell through. The night Jamie had claimed a late shift and came home after midnight, cranky and tight-lipped. Context, I asked, and my voice surprised me by not breaking. What context would make this okay? Jamie lifted a hand, palm open, not touching me but hovering, a peace offering. I was trying to protect you. I watched you work 2 jobs that week, your actual job and Danielle's to-do list. I thought Lauren would be the safest person to say something because she loves Danielle. I thought if it came from her, it would land softer. I stared at the phone. The blue bubbles blurred. My eyes were wet, and I hadn't even realized. I swallowed hard. You told her to intervene with my best friend. Without telling me. Jamie closed their eyes for a moment, like they were swallowing something sharp. I shouldn't have done it behind your back. I can own that. But I didn't call Danielle names. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was scared that you keep giving and giving until there's nothing left. It's happened before, not just with her. The worst part was, I recognized the kernel of truth in that. I had been the person who stayed late for bosses who forgot I was human, who made worksheets for cousins who remembered I existed only when finals week rolled around, who put out little fires without asking for credit. But there was a difference between naming a pattern and enlisting a friend to play messenger in a way that made me the fragile project in the middle. The phone buzzed again. This time Danielle sent a second screenshot. The top of the image showed Lauren's reply from that night. I don't think that's fair. She's carried a lot for me too. Then another blue bubble. Exactly my point. She carries. But who's carrying her? Jamie's name at the top of the thread, plain as day. I exhaled through my nose and handed Jamie the phone. She says there's a voice memo too. Jamie looked at the screen and passed it back. Do you want to hear it? They asked it like they already knew the answer. My thumb touched the play triangle before my mind had finished deciding. A tiny waveform pulsed. Jamie's voice filled the car, tinny and close, like they were sitting between us. Lauren, it's me. I know this is awkward, but I like you and I think you get it. I'm not trying to start drama. I need someone other than me to tell Danielle she's leaning on my partner too much. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want them to be the bad guy either. Please, just talk to her. Not about me, about the meeting room. Please. The memo ended on a breath that sounded almost like a half laugh, half plea. I could picture Jamie recording it outside on our patio, the soft clink of our wind chimes out of frame. I could also picture Lauren opening it and feeling stuck between 2 loyalties she'd never asked to be referee for. Jamie's eyes stayed on the dashboard. That was the night you fell asleep on the couch with a glue stick in your hand. You don't remember, but you woke up and told me your wrists hurt from writing numbers, and then you apologized to me for not being fun anymore. You apologized. Their voice cracked on the word. I didn't know what else to do. I pressed my knuckle to my lip and tasted the faintest hint of lip balm and salt. So you made a plan without me. And Danielle made a plan without me. And somehow I was the only one who didn't get to consent to any of it. I was trying to help, Jamie said again, small. I believe that. And at the same time, I felt something old and bone-deep stir inside my chest. The version of me who had told people I was fine so many times I almost believed it. Until nights like this when the bill came due. My phone lit with one more message. Danielle wasn't done. I shouldn't have separated you two. I'll own that. But ask yourself why Jamie wanted your friendships managed like a project plan. I read it twice. My hands were cold now. In spite of the warm air, I turned on without thinking. I adjusted the heater, then turned it back down, unsure what my body wanted. Jamie watched me set the phone face down on my thigh. "Can you hand me your water?" they asked, voice barely above a whisper. I passed the bottle from the cup holder. They took a long sip and winced like the water was too cold. "So," I said, and there was no way to make the next part elegant. "What are we doing?" Jamie's eyes shifted toward me, hopeful and haunted all at once. "Right now? We drive home, we eat something, we sleep, and we talk tomorrow when we're not shaking. I'm asking bigger than tonight." They opened their mouth and closed it again. "I don't want to lose you." I looked at the road ahead, a long ribbon of 2 lanes and darkness and the faint suggestion of a town in the distance. The only thing I could think to do was go toward lights. "Let's get off the shoulder," I said. "I can't keep having epiphanies next to a ditch." We pulled back onto the road. I drove in silence, hands at 10 and 2 like a student driver, as if competence could be stitched back together by posture alone. After a few minutes, the lights ahead became signs and storefronts. There was a diner, the kind with a neon coffee cup sign and a row of trucks out front. I turned into the lot and parked far from the bright windows. Being near people felt both necessary and impossible. Inside, we slid into a booth by the window. The vinyl squeaked under my dress and stuck a little at the backs of my knees. A waitress with a silver bun and an armful of bangles brought water and menus we didn't open. The smell of coffee and butter and syrup was warm and comforting, like a blanket someone else had knit. We didn't speak until she was gone. When I did, my voice sounded like it belonged to someone older than me. "I'm not going back," I said. "To the wedding." Jamie nodded. "I know. I don't think I could walk back in there and be the supportive bridesmaid and pretend this is only about one night. It isn't." Jamie watched the bubbles rise in their water. "I don't want you to pretend anything." "Good." I stared down at the wood grain in the table. "Because I'm so tired of pretending." We sat with that for a minute. The couple in the next booth were sharing a plate of pancakes, the man cutting careful triangles and sliding them onto the woman's plate like a ritual. The waitress laughed with a customer at the counter. The neon sign buzzed faintly against the window. "Can I ask you something honestly?" I said at last. "Always," Jamie said, and I wished the word didn't come with that tiny aftertaste of irony now. "If you were worried about me," I said slowly, "why not just talk to me? Not once at a random moment. But really sit me down and say, I feel scared when you pour yourself out like this because I love you and I don't want to watch you go empty." "Why go to Mark?" "To Lauren?" Jamie's mouth trembled before they clamped it into stillness. "Because when I said it to you, you looked at me like I was attacking Danielle. And because they stopped, worked their jaw, started again. Because I am not proud of this, but I wanted it to look like I wasn't the only one seeing it. I wanted cover. The honesty sat between us, soft and terrible. And do you see," I said, "how much that made me feel like a project? Like I was a situation to be managed?" "Yes," Jamie said immediately. "I do now. I am sorry." The words moved through me, not soothing, not cutting, just there. True and insufficient at the same time. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against the table with a little hop. Danielle's name. I closed my eyes for a second, then answered. I put it on speaker and set it between us, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because the days of private triangulation were over. Her voice came through tiny and thin. "You're not coming back, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm not." There was a beat, and in that beat I heard music through the phone, clinking glass, a faint cheer. Somewhere in that room, a cake was being cut, or a garter tossed, or a song from college was making people lift their arms and shout in unison. Life was proceeding without me, which is both the point and the pain. "I shouldn't have seated Jamie away from you," Danielle said. "I did that. I made that call. The planner asked me where to place extra partners, and I said to put them anywhere but with the bridal party, and I knew what that would mean tonight. I told myself it was strategic, but it was petty. It was." The apology landed like a coin in a jar, a small, clean sound. "And the comments from your family?" I asked. "I didn't make them," she said, voice sharper. "But I didn't stop them either. I let my mom talk because stopping her felt like lighting a match in a dry field." She sighed, and I could picture the exact shape of her mouth when she did that, the way her lips gathered to one side. "I was angry at Jamie, and I told myself that anger was a good enough reason to keep the peace by sacrificing one person's comfort. It wasn't. I know that now. Across the table, Jamie stared straight down, lashes casting little half-moon shadows under their eyes. "Why didn't you talk to me?" I asked. "About the voice memo, about the engagement party comment, any of it." "I did," Danielle said, like this part hurt. "I tried. The night after the engagement party, I pulled you aside and said I felt judged by your partner. You said they didn't mean it and changed the subject to bridesmaid shoes. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. Then a week later Lauren told me about the memo, and I shut down. I told myself you would pick them anyway, so what was the point?" The diner hummed around us. I squeezed the edge of the table until it bit into my fingertips, a small pain I could control. "I didn't want this to be a competition," I said, "between the person I love and the person who has been my family for years." "Then stop keeping score," Danielle said. The words weren't cruel, they were weary. "Stop trying to decide who was more wrong tonight, and ask what you want your life to look like. I got married today. You heard me promise a whole life to someone. Who do you want to be when you promise yours?" It startled me that she could ask a loving question from inside a hurting moment. I felt the weight of what she was saying, not as a judgment, but as a call. I said, and I had to try again. "I want to build a life where my partner doesn't campaign behind my back, and where my best friend doesn't smooth over people's comfort with someone else's discomfort. I swallowed. "I want people to tell me the truth to me." "Okay," Danielle said softly. "Then here is mine. I love you. If you need space from me, I will give it. I also need you to know I am not a project either. I am messy and proud, and I get scared and I cling. I picked a bad coping strategy, and I hurt you. I am sorry. If Jamie wants an apology from me, I can give them one too. But I won't pretend I trust them now. Not yet." Jamie flinched, barely. I saw it, and I filed it somewhere safe because it mattered. "I don't know the timeline for any of this," I said, honest to the bone. "I don't know how to be at your brunch tomorrow, or your gift opening, or anything. I can't do it." "You don't have to," Danielle said. "Go home. Sleep. If you want to talk next week, I'm here. If you need a month, I'm here." There was a pause. "I still wish you'd been there for the last dance." "I do too," I said, and it surprised me that it was true and that it hurt. We said goodbye. I didn't say, "I love you," because I didn't know how to say it without making it feel like a bandage when it needed to be a bridge built slowly. When the call ended, the waitress appeared with 2 mugs of coffee like she'd been waiting for a lull in the storm she couldn't hear. She set them down and left us to pour our own cream, to choose our own sweetness. The metaphor felt so on the nose I almost laughed. Jamie reached for my hand on the table and stopped halfway, a question instead of an assumption. I let my fingers slide forward and meet theirs. Their palm was cool. Mine was shaking, but less than before. "I will apologize to Danielle," they said, eyes on our hands. "Not for seeing a pattern, but for how I acted on it. For going behind you. For making her the enemy in my head. And I will apologize to her," I said, "for brushing her off when she tried to tell me she was hurt. And I will not accept what happened tonight as the cost of getting the perfect family photo." Jamie looked up, searching my face. "And us." "And us," I said, "need rules we actually say out loud. If you're scared for me, you tell me. If I defend someone and you feel shut down, you tell me you feel shut down, not that I'm blind. No more secret memos. No more seating charts as punishment." Jamie let out a breath that wobbled at the end. "Okay." We drank our coffee. We ordered pancakes we didn't finish. We paid in cash because my card felt like too formal a transaction for a night that had already cost so much. The drive home was quiet, but not like before. It felt like fins breaking the surface of water instead of a plunge into dark. At home, I set my dress over a chair, unpinned my hair, and stood in the shower until the water went from warm to stubbornly lukewarm to a suggestion. I watched the eyeliner rinse into little rivers and disappear. I crawled into bed and left a space between us wide enough for honesty to lie down too. I did not sleep quickly, but I slept. Morning started with the buzz of my phone again. Danielle's sister had added me to a new group chat with several bridesmaids and 2 aunts I barely knew. "We need to clear the air," one message read. "It looked bad," another said. "People are saying you made a scene," came one more. I stared at the little gray bubbles floating, someone typing, the modern drum roll. Before they turned into words, I left the thread. Then I texted Danielle directly. If people want my statement, they can read it the way everyone reads things these days. She sent a single heart, and then, do what you need. So I opened this app, and I wrote. I wrote down the grapevines and the string lights and the way a person can be loved by two people who do not yet know how to love each other. I wrote the version that doesn't make me a saint or a villain. I wrote how leaving wasn't a grand performance. It was two sets of feet walking over gravel while someone in a white dress called my name, and my heart split right down the middle between past and present. The fallout since last night. Danielle's new husband texted me a photo from the end of the reception. He and Danielle on the dance floor, forehead to forehead, his message reading, "She cried for 10 minutes and then danced for 20. We will be fine. I hope you will be too." Lauren texted me a screenshot of her last messages with Jamie. There were lines even I hadn't seen, and lines that made me wince and lines that made me grateful she had tried to stay neutral for as long as she could. She added, "I love you. I love her. Please don't make me choose." Two bridesmaids sent apologies for not noticing what was happening at table 18. One added, "I did notice and I didn't do anything, and I'm sorry." That one made me cry into my breakfast toast in a way that felt like release, not injury. Jamie sat across from me at the kitchen table and wrote an apology text. They showed me before sending. The words were simple and clean. Danielle wrote back, "Thank you. I believe you are trying. I need time." I have not heard from Danielle's mom. I do not expect to. I keep replaying the night, and there are frames I wish I could edit. The way my voice went sharp at the head table, the moment I imagined a better person would deliver a better speech and convince everyone to be kind. But there is no director's cut where I stand on a chair and charm people out of their bias. There is only the cut where I choose my partner's dignity over a perfect photo. If this were purely about a seating chart, I'd wonder if I'd overreacted. If it were purely about a voice memo, I'd wonder if I'd underreacted. But it was both, and more, a lattice of choices everyone thought they were making for my good. Danielle believed keeping the peace was the highest virtue. Jamie believed managing the problem would save me from myself. I believed for a long time that loving people meant absorbing the consequences of both. Last night, I believed something new. Loving people means telling them the truth and walking away from the table they set for you if the place card says, "Please make yourself small." So here is the question, clean and direct, no more scripting. I left my best friend's wedding early because of how they treated my partner, and because I realized the problem wasn't going to get smaller if I smiled through cake cutting. I know I hurt her on a day that was supposed to be the opposite of hurt. I also know my partner has things to make right. We're trying to do that now, not in whispers. Am I the jerk for walking out? Or was leaving the first honest thing I did for everyone, including me? I'm asking for judgment because I can't trust mine alone right now. Did I bail when I should have stayed and fought in the room? Did I escalate a situation that could have been handled after the last dance? Or was leaving the only way to say, "This is not what love looks like," in a language anyone would hear? I keep thinking about the moment in the parking lot, the floodlights turning Danielle's veil into a comet tail as she ran, the way Jamie's hand weighted mine like a promise and a plea. I keep thinking about the voice memo, the prayer inside it, the part that says please. I keep thinking about the empty chair next to table 2 where a place card with Jamie's name should have been. Leaving felt like putting that card in my pocket and saying, someone's name goes next to mine because I say so, not because someone else finds it comfortable. Maybe I ruined a memory. Maybe I saved a different one. I can live with the first. I'm trying to build a life on the second.